an injury can have such a detrimental effect on the psyche that we have to make sure we're tuning into that as healthcare providers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's time for another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, where I, your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, get a chance to meet cool people doing cool things, literally making a difference in the lives of people of all sorts, all types, and from all over the place. Today is no exception. Today, I have someone who I've been looking forward to meeting for a long time because while he doesn't know me, I knew him because he was a Denver Bronco. And by the way, that's my team. I enjoy the Broncos, always have, being from Denver. And so it's an honor to have with me, and wait for it, Dr. David Bruton Jr. on the show with me. Dr. David, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. So we could talk for hours. I'm going to have to watch the clock here because you and I have so much in common with respect to some of the background and then healthcare and all these other things that we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
That it could go for hours. So I'm going to make sure that I really try to dial it in for people, but this is going to be so fun because what you've done, I think, for me, is to say you can take this incredible skill and gift that you have as an athlete, and then you can use that on the field to make a difference and change people's lives. Absolutely. Who are so tied to these teams and these communities. And then what you learned from your personal experience, you can transfer that into a whole nother career, the ultimate pivot, that now you're helping people through your physical therapy practice and things that you're doing. So I'm excited to talk about all of these things. And as we start, tell us just a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, where you're at, how you got interested, or what drove your love for football, and then what drove your love for physical therapy.
All right. Well, I hope y'all tune in, buckle up. It's a long story. No, I can try to abbreviate it for sure. I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. Born in Kentucky, was brought up in Dayton, Ohio because my parents were seeking better opportunities for work and for school. So we kind of settled down in Miamisburg, Ohio. And my first exposure to actual sports and physical therapy was around 6th, 7th grade. So I was a late bloomer as far as playing football, baseball, track. I started late while everybody in Miamisburg, Ohio was like, once you're born, you got a helmet on, right?
Yes, in Ohio, it's insane.
It's insane. It's insane. So I was definitely a late bloomer in that regard, but I took every bit of opportunity that I had. My dad always would joke with me, you're going to be my basketball player. You're going to be my basketball player, because I was always the tall, skinny, lanky kid, like never was able to put on weight. And he would tease me. He still teases me to this day about, you were supposed to be my basketball player, things of that nature. But we fast forward to 7th grade, playing football. I start first year playing football. I remember my first big hit that happened to me, got that wind knocked out of me. That's probably the worst feeling out there.
Yes.
And then 8th grade, I broke my leg. So that was that middle school was my first exposure to physical therapy. And as I go through this journey, as we talk, I get a chance to share, like, I've had some bad physical therapists, I've had some good physical therapists, all in which I learned something or kind of helped me, stay on track to where I am now.
Yeah. But so they were a big part of your career.
Absolutely.
All the way through, from early on all the way in. I love PT, and you and I talked a little bit before the show, as a DC or a chiropractor. My specialty was sports injuries. So I got what's called a diplomate in sports injuries. It was a 3-year program after my graduation. And I realized that the rehab is it's an intricate thing, and there's levels of rehab. I call it level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 3 is, hey man, there's these basic exercises are going to help, simple situations 90% of the time. Level 2, more complex. Level 3, it's that person that nobody else seems to be able to help. And man, our PTs that are gifted in movement therapy, that are gifted in so many different techniques these days.
Absolutely.
They blow my mind, and they're great primary care providers alongside of MDs and DCs and massage therapists and acupuncturists. The model now from when I played football back in, and I didn't take it near your level, I just played through high school, but that was in 85. We had a general practitioner who didn't know anything about anything, who was our team doctor. And that's all we had, small single A school. And so now to see where you've come from, man, beautiful. What is your favorite style of physical therapy? What is your model with respect to the integrative techniques?
My style of physical therapy is reset, relearn, reinforce. That's how I kind of treat. I treat time on the table, where we're focusing on reducing pain, improving range of motion, resetting the muscle, activate it. Then we try to relearn how to properly move. Once we have an injury, our body is such a great compensator, so we learn how to pivot and perform without properly using those muscles. We do it all the time as elite athletes. Like 90% of the guys out there who's still playing, they have some type of bump, bruise, or injury going on, but they're still playing. And then reinforce. I believe in doing more than just some TheraBands. I believe in stressing the tissues, stressing the muscles, stressing the joint. That's how we learn. Wolff's Laws, David's Law. Studying for school, right? Like we stress the brain to prepare for tests. That's how our knowledge stays in there. So why not apply those same principles to PT? So essentially, I'm a physical therapist turned personal trainer towards the end of your rehab.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And now I want to bring in your NFL experience. So first of all, the number of people that get to what you got to do is so infinitesimally small compared to all the people available, and even those that played the sport, whatever sport it is. But in our case now, we're talking about football. I mean, I loved that game. I still love that game more than any other game, any other sport I ever played. But listen, to get to that level, it's such rarefied air. Did you understand the magnitude of your skills or was it just like, you just float into the next step because that's just who you were?
So kind of what happened with me was that I didn't worry about recruiting. I just went out there and played.
High school?
Yep. Same thing with college. I just went out there and played, and then I started getting agents to reach out to me. Like I just went out there and played.
For the love of the game, or what was that?
Love of the game and just the work ethic and my dad implementing this quote to me: the way you do small things is the way you do all things. So I always put in 100% effort in every little thing that I did. So that kind of carried me through even to this day, and kind of established who I am as a person, at who I am in my core.
That is beautiful. I'm writing that down. The way I do small things is the way I do all things. I heard that stated another way is how you do something is how you do everything.
Yes, sir.
But small and all, I love that. I want to ask you a question. This is based on a podcast I just listened to because, again, I don't get a chance to talk to a ton of athletes that have been at the level that you've been at. With respect to reinforcement, emotional, mental reinforcement, were you someone who received reinforcement to say, oh man, Dave, you're just so great. You're such a great athlete. You're such a great athlete. You're such a great athlete. You're such a great whatever, student, human? Or were you someone who received more praise of, hey, great job, but I'm more proud of you for the work you put in, for the grind that you put in, for the effort that you put in? Do you remember the type of reinforcement that you got? Or was it negative, like, dude, you got to do better? Like, what was your model that drove you to this level?
I think I was exposed to a lot of different models, coming from Pittsburgh, Ohio to Notre Dame to the NFL, where we had a multitude of different coaches, head coaches, especially my first few years, or defensive coordinators. Just everybody has their own different style. I think it was a culmination of all, and just, you try to adapt to the coach's style, and the coach tries to adapt to how you learn. I think the coaches who have success are those who can relate to players on every independent level, not just treat us all in a box.
Yes.
So that it goes a long way, I think. And with all those experiences, I learned myself how to critique myself. Like everybody loves some type of acclamation,
some praise,
some anything along those lines. It's just, but when you get to that level, and as a medical professional as well, how can you show professionalism in addressing where your flaws are, where your shortcomings are? How can you help the team? How can you help that patient? How can you help, the special teams unit? How can you help anybody who has concussions? Like, how can you be better? And are you willing to critique yourself and not just give yourself the pat on the back? That's the hard thing for a lot of people. It's like, well, who wants to be negative to themselves? I don't think it's negative. I think it's an opportunity for you to grow.
That's so beautiful. And I'll tell you what spurred that question in my mind. There's a guy, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and two of the folks I listen to a lot, one, his name is Andrew Huberman, and the Huberman podcast. I'm a big fan of that. And another one is Peter Attia, who's a medical doctor and all about longevity, all things, all things with living health style, not just lifestyle kind of thing. And in one of Huberman's recent podcasts, he talked about the WIC study on mindset and there's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset. An interesting thing that people who were always told you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart in these particular studies, they were smart. But what happened is because they were reinforced about the emotional side, the intelligence, that they would do worse on the same test, same level of test next time, because anytime they felt like they were facing a challenge, instead of wanting to attack the challenge, they didn't want to not be smart. Yeah. So they just shied away from it versus someone who was told, and that's a fixed mindset, right? That my intelligence and my ability is fixed. Whereas a growth mindset, it was, you tried hard. Even though you missed it, I love your effort. Even though you missed that tackle, hey, you were right there, and keep grinding. That those kids on tests actually did better on the second test. Yep. And so saying that we can actually be causing less performance when we're encouraging our patients, our athletes, our families, our coworkers by only showering them with praise. And that's my nature. Yeah. My nature is all like, man, great job. I'm so proud of you. Yeah. As opposed to now I'm starting to think, well, I also need to put in there, great job because, right? And so I wanted to see if your experience coming all the way up through, whether it be from home or coaches, had any of that sense to you. It's just fascinating to me.
Absolutely. No, I think that's very true. I think there's a lot of play in that the society, how we're raised, how we're brought up. You know, like you mentioned earlier, like it's not just a healthcare team of a DPT or a DC. It's everybody who's involved in somebody's injury or their performance. Like, how can we make them better? And if we're hindering them by only giving them praise, like, where are they going to find the need for growth?
Right.
Where are they going to find that need?
So good. And when you were playing, so now kind of I'm jumping back and forth
all
to kind
good.
of keep people interested on the next piece. When you were playing on the team that ended up winning the Super Bowl, was it as exciting and was it everything that us as football fans think it would be when you're going through the process of winning a championship?
I'm going to tell you what, losing one sucks just as bad too, right?
From the year before or whatever, right?
Yeah, 48 was rough.
48, I remember.
That one was rough. But, you know, for me, Super Bowl 50 was bittersweet, but it was everything that you play for. You play to be the best in the world. You played for that trophy. You play for the rings. You play for, you know, forever being etched in history as part of that team. Like, we're probably going to go down as the top 5 defense ever in the NFL, especially in a game now. It's like run and gun, throw the ball, air it out, and everybody has athletes, and every team pretty much has a quarterback that makes $200+ million.
Yes.
So we're always fighting against that gun. But, you know, for me it was bittersweet because, like, we made it. I was part of this team. I did so much. I get to hold the trophy.
Yeah, the trophy. Captain of the special teams, man.
Yes, sir.
Like, it's a big deal.
Yes, sir. And, you know, I broke down and cried. Like, you see grown men crying because, you know, you worked so hard for it.
Yes.
And there's some guys who have Hall of Fame careers who never won a Super Bowl. Brian Dawkins, Champ Bailey, like never won. I'd name those two. Never won a Super Bowl. Yep. Got to him one time, and they had long careers, and only got to it once each.
Yep.
I was very fortunate enough to go twice and split it at 50%. So it's like, there's so many guys who've had such a longer career, and for them not to get one and not to have that moment, my heart's for them. But I'm like, this is what we played for. We played to win. We played to be the best all the time.
Wow. And so what did you learn about leadership? Because you had one of the ultimate leaders ever on a football field in Peyton Manning as part of both those teams, the win and the losses. Obviously, he was a different player in his final season than he was at the almost seemed like the height of his powers with the numbers that you guys put up as a team in 48. But what did you learn from maybe him as that vocal, commanding leader versus when some of the leaders that were more quiet and assertive from their actions or something? Because I think leadership right now is very much it's in need. It's always been in need.
Absolutely.
But there are different types of leaders and different types of leadership. I get to see that every day in the work that I do and the people that I work with, that some people, like you mentioned earlier, you said, hey, some people respond to different types of coaching and feedback and all that kind of stuff. these different types of leaders, I think, is important. And for you as a provider, you have to lead every single patient. You have to lead your staff, the people that work alongside you, and that answer the phone or anything. So what'd you learn about leadership from the NFL and championship team?
Oh, I learned a lot. So like I said, I had Champ Bailey, Brian Dawkins, I had Wesley Woodyard, Peyton Manning. I had all these great guys who were in a leadership role who had to see on their chest how they went about their business professionally. So I saw Brian Dawkins as, the quiet leader, but on the field he was a trained killer. Like he was like the most vicious hitter I've ever seen, but never cussed. Right? Champ was very low key, very chilled, nothing, like very chill demeanor. We had Wesley Woodyard, who was like a super hype man, jokester, things of that nature, but he handled his business on and off the field. And then Peyton was just super cerebral. He could crack jokes and things of that nature, but he could break down your habits better than you could. So it was a whole different mindset of leadership. But what I learned from those guys was to be myself. Like I tried being the rah-rah guy. That was never my demeanor. At college, Notre Dame, things of that nature. I was not that type of guy. I was more of a, let's pull you aside. How can I help you type leader? What are we missing here? I was more that leader that sat back and listened to everybody. Okay, what's our big problems that we need to focus on? Like I wasn't going to MF you or grab you by the jersey or things of that nature. Like, yo, like you're a young guy. You're trying to make the team. How can I help you make the team?
Yeah.
How can I help you grow? And even if you don't make the team, how can I help you have a career in the NFL beyond that? So it's just looking outside myself because it's competition, right? It's only 53 men on a team. You go into training camp with 90 to 100, and by that third, fourth preseason game, you got to cut down to 53.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're thinking, okay, well, I can't give them all my hints or tips
right,
because I don't want them to take my job.
Yep.
But in the grand scheme of things, I was like, well, I got to give back. That's just my nature. It's like, I got to give back. Like if I can get them to be better, we're going to be better as a unit. Yeah. Now I'm confident in myself to be here on this team. I want the teammates around me to know that I'm there to help them be the best version of themselves.
That's beautiful. Now I want to take what you did as a rock star. You were called one of the best special teams players in the league during your time. And you played, by the way, twice the average NFL career, right? An NFL career on average about 4 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is now, but that's what it typically has been. And you were in 8 seasons.
Yes, sir.
You were a special teams monster. Like that was where, and I mean, defensive back, all good, but you were captain on special teams. I'm interested if you had a thought process for us in context, meaning a lot of people in their work, their business, their whatever part of their lives, they might not understand that there's a special teams unit in everything,
Absolutely.
Right? Some of the things that we think are important are the scoring, right? Mm-hmm. In offense and the defense preventing the score, but the special team sets so much of that up. Mm-hmm. In every situation, there's going to be a special teams, and how important those are to the overall mission. Can you just speak to that, like in a business, for example? Yep, you're producing the result. In your case, you're giving great care. But there's also things of like, okay, well, the marketing could be seen as special teams or some other thing like that. Can you just speak to the importance of the quote unquote special teams aspect of any organization?
I think communication would be one of the big things for business as far as the special teams. So for me as a cash-based clinic, having that conversation with somebody as to why to go the cash-based route versus insurance route and educating them on, you're still going to have to pay an out-of-pocket max. Here's how we can still help you, and we're able to allot you more time. Yes. So essentially what I'm saying, I can allot you more time is better field position, right? Versus being on the 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is that you see at some of these high volume places before you go see a PTA or an aide or a tech or something like that for your exercises. But with me, you're starting, let's say, at the 40. Yes. You're staying at the 50.
Yeah.
Say you have low back pain and it's, you have some ridiculous symptoms, and we can needle down from L5 and follow that train all the way down to the foot, and then you're better there. I'd say we started on the 10. We had a great kick return, right off the bat. So, specialty, I think the communication piece is where I see like the difference in a lot of PT clinics, because a lot of them take insurance, so you don't have to communicate. You don't have to butt your head up
Long
against
as
the
you're in
wall there.
network.
Yeah. It's simple.
Yeah.
Special teams is a grind. So that communication is a grind. How can you handle it? How can you make the adjustments? Are you selling it in a way where they understand? Am I doing that the same for a young rookie coming up to try to play special teams? That's where I see, because us as PTs, like we're pretty much taught the same thing. Our differences are our experiences. I think that's our big differences there. So how can I set myself apart? Is everybody's got a good quarterback or a good offense. Okay, some teams do. It's not all.
Not us last year.
Yeah. So everybody's got a defense, whatever. Special teams can change the game.
Yes.
So if I can change the productivity just by how I communicate with people.
So good. Because, I could see that also playing out like in a relationship with two people that are friends or that are family members or whatever, where there's the basic things of, hey, we got to do this to function. But then there's these special team moments like, hey, I know what your key values are. I know what really makes you tick. And I'm going to once in a while just say thank you in one of those key values. That's a special team item that changes the game. So I want to just highlight that for a minute because, your participation at something that is often overlooked was absolutely paramount in winning a championship.
Absolutely.
And so that was special. Speaking of playing, I know you played one game with a broken fibula.
Yes, sir.
And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's the predominantly non-bearing bone on the outside of the lower leg. But any broken bone is a painful broken bone.
Absolutely.
Can you walk us through what that was like? Because again, most people aren't going to understand this, and I want to tie it into your transition and your pivot into healthcare from just you living the life of getting in a car wreck like 27 times a game.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was pretty painful, towards the end of the game, right? Having to have somebody, a couple teammates help me up the tunnel.
Did you know it was broken?
No, I thought it was just a calf cramp where you got whipped in the leg and
took a shot.
Yeah, I just thought it was just seizing up and whatever. So I would try to have trainers or massage therapists work on it. Halftime on the sidelines, like, okay, y'all can't touch it. Just don't touch it. Let's put a sleeve on it. I'll be good. Like, just don't touch it. But it happened in the first quarter, and I played 70 plus, 80 plus plays on that leg. Having to cover the tight end, have to cover Antonio Brown when he's in his prime. Ben Roethlisberger was still there, and do special teams still. So I was still super busy, super active in that game with that broken leg, and I think what this transitions to, what this pivots to, is the mental toll that it took on me to hear that
I was just going to ask.
I was going to be put on IR after that game.
Yeah.
Did an X-ray there, showed nothing. Did an MRI when we got back, showed that I had a cracked fibular head. And, thinking broken bones takes 5, 6, 7 weeks maybe. Obviously I'm going to be in the training room all the time. We'll do the bone density scan deal, things of that nature, whatever we need to do to kind of heal it up. But getting taken into that training room and then going to see Coach Kubiak at the top, and he's telling, Brute, we're going to have to put you on IR. Like, that was a shot to the stomach. Like, it hurt so deep, to the point where I cried. It's like it was heavy, and like the emotional toll that it took on me at the time. Like, I never smoked before in my life. Never smoked a cigarette or anything a day in my life. After I got put on IR, I started as a way to cope. Yeah. Because I just could not, I couldn't go out there and practice. I couldn't play. I was having the best season I've ever played. Coach Wade Phillips gave me that opportunity to play on defense. Like, everybody saw me strictly as special teams. I'm over here leading the team in interceptions, causing fumbles, saving the game, giving us a chance to have a final drive. Like, all these moments, and it just got cut short. And thinking about that 6 weeks, I'm like, I could run, I could jump, things of that nature. And come Super Bowl, come the AFC Championship game, I'm able to jog around and run. Come Super Bowl, I'm able to jump, high point a ball, things of that nature. And John Elway comes up to me, he's like, we shouldn't have put you on IR, huh? I was like, no, and I tried to tell you, like, I would be good. But, they had to play the numbers game. Yep. And got to cut a safety to bring a safety, but then they cut that safety. It's like, so ultimately, to me, it didn't really freaking matter at that time. It's like, you didn't keep a safety on here to replace me. So
what did you learn from that about yourself? Obviously, the original response to stress was so overwhelming that you took up a habit that you would normally not take. What did you, as that went, because we all face defeats, and we all face times where we fall down, and I think we can learn from, how you rebounded. Did it take you a long time to get over that or get through that? And what were the tools that you maybe used to get right?
I felt like it took some time. After we won the Super Bowl, after that I was good. Now it's like, okay, I'm no longer depressed. We made it. We did it. Everybody, Peyton, the DB room, the linebackers, everybody that I was in like close with on the teams, like, Brute, you played a huge role in this. Don't worry about it. You're good. Like, I got that affirmation there from those guys, coaches, Koo, Wade, things of that nature. So I was able to drop that habit, but during that time, I learned that. And for me, thinking about it now with some of my patients, like, an injury can have such a detrimental effect on the psyche that we have to make sure we're tuning into that as healthcare providers.
Yes.
We can't just look at it as an injury to the wrist or an injury to the knee or shoulder. Like, it's an injury to the whole dang system.
Yes.
It's a biopsychosocial model. Like, we have to pay attention to the whole thing. Like, biologically, we know the tissue is going to heal. We know it's going to heal. Socially, what are the pressures that this individual is facing? Are they going into their senior year of high school? Are they going into the Super Bowl? Like, what are they potentially going to miss some of their senior season? Like, we got to take into that societal demand. Do they have camps? Because,
year-long stuff now.
Year-long stuff now, right? And then psychologically, how are they handling that? How's it on social media? How do they respond to that? Do they prefer being in an office space, or do they want to be in a gym where they're around like weights and things of that nature to still feel like an athlete? Do we still give them some type of freedom to do stuff at practice? Like, I have a young girl with a meniscus, and I'm like, dude, as long as you're stationary, you can do a quarter squat, hit the ball back to the girls, feel part of the team. That's going to help you with your rehab.
Absolutely.
So I learned so much in that moment as far as you cannot ignore the mental aspect. But how are you going to address the mental aspect if you're in a system where you have to see 18, 20, 25 people a day?
Yeah.
How do you have time to address the mental aspect?
So true. So true. I want to finish the NFL side of things on a question. Because you are a healthcare provider, and because I know that you've experienced concussion and that you work with concussion, which we can talk about in a minute, how do you feel about tackle football? You said that you were a late bloomer. I remember talking to Alfred Williams one time, and I know he didn't start playing until high school, playing tackle football. Yeah. And so I'm interested in, with the thought about permanency of brain injuries, multiple concussions, and the serial nature of their significance. Where do you stand on kids playing tackle football?
I think the later the better, honestly. I think football is a great sport. Football is a sport that takes a lot of skill, but I think football takes more toughness than skill, mentally and physically. Like, can you constantly get hit and get back up and do it again? It's not as watered down as basketball, as baseball, softball, volleyball, where it's year round. Football's fall.
Yes.
Football is late summer, fall. They're trying to do like showcases and things of that nature, your camps with it, but it's then.
Right.
As long as you're tough, you can learn to tackle. You can learn the skills, but give your brain time to develop. Give your brain time to still be able to process information. Like, our brain's still growing till we're in our 20s, right?
Absolutely.
So like we're still constantly banging your head. You're breaking neural circuits. You're having to retrain the brain. And then think about this: a lot of youth athletes or high school athletes don't have access to somebody who's trained in concussion, or we have the heads up tackling program or things of that nature. But how much knowledge do they know to see, okay, this person has a concussion? Or is it still that old adage, they got their bell rung, shake it off, go do it.
Right,
go out
exactly.
there
How many fingers am I holding up?
Yep,
absolutely. Well, I would agree with you. I had one of our kids was a bigger kid, and so he ended up coming out of high school 6'4", probably a couple 100 pounds or something like that. And I played football from when I was 7 through high school, and he had talked about wanting to play football. Well, he was big his whole life, and so the coaches would always be like, and this is what I told him. I said, look, Connor, football is a game that just because people want you to play, and just because it looks cool on Friday night or Saturday, it's a game that you have to love the process of the entirety, because what you go through Monday through Friday, it makes it tough to just have Saturday be worth all that, unless you like the whole thing. And I said, so, I'm not against it. If you want to play, you can play. But he wouldn't have started until, close to high school, like junior high.
Yeah.
But now, with me starting so young, I'm torn by it. So, I wanted to see someone who has gone through it to the highest level and is trained medically, see what you guys thought. Do you think that's predominant thinking among healthcare providers and now even among the athletes to say, hey, you don't have to start hitting heads with pads until high school?
Yeah.
Is that common?
I think a few guys that I've talked to and played with talking about they don't want their kids to even play the game of football, right? Especially the older veterans, like, I would prefer my kid not to play football.
Yeah.
But it's kind of tough because dad played football.
Yeah.
I want to be like that, or I
Yes.
think I can play like that, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough to find that sweet balance as far as when can I let you start? I know you're going to want to anyway. How can I best prepare you for that?
Yeah.
Because kids now are bigger, faster, stronger, just like the league. Bigger, faster, stronger. So impact's going to be bigger, faster, and harder. Right.
I think it's a great question. People should analyze that for themselves. And so now as we transition into the healthcare side, one of my favorite memories in the world was I got invited. I used to teach for a company called Rock Tape, right? Okay. And so I'm sure, you've heard of
Rock Tape, yes, sir.
So their medical director, Dr. Steve Capobianco, is a dear friend of mine, and we had a gym together. So we were part of an ownership group of this CrossFit / movement center called Project Move. And he got invited through that to go down and show the training team for the Broncos taping, how to tape basics, right? So knees and shoulders and basics. And he said, hey, Jim, will you come with me? And then we'll be able to split up and do this. And man, I'm telling you, going into that center, it was so cool. Yeah. So I guess I haven't left football yet, but it was so cool being in the facility, in the building, in the training room, and then showing all the trainers the stuff that could then be used directly on the athletes right away. So sidebar before I ask you the question, I noticed Peyton Manning was in the room that day when we were there.
Okay.
And here's the quarterback, best quarterback in the league at that time, killing it in every way, completely dialed into what we were doing. This was for the trainers. Nothing about him as an athlete, but he wanted to know. And I never forgot that. I mean, here's a guy who was so astute in wanting to make sure that he knew the process of the entire thing around him. I'm like, I get it. I get it. Why this guy is who he is. But anyway, with respect to types of work that you do, I know taping has become a really big part of many, many clinics. And then grooving certain patterns, meaning that, like you said, restoring the function. That if you get an abnormal pattern moving correctly, you got to groove that pattern so that in the memory, it becomes like, oh, that's how I do it. I don't do it incorrectly. I do it this way. Are you finding specialty techniques now and some of the things that you're learning, even that have developed since you got your doctorate in 21, new kind of cool things to help you do what you do?
I think the medical field just is always changing, always advancing. So you have to stay on top of that literature, right? So one big thing that I learned a lot, learned from one of my clinical instructors, Jessica Dietz. She taught me about neuroinfra, just a quick little brief thing about neuroinfra, especially with patients.
So describe what that is so that people know.
So neuroinfra is instead of like, say you're trying to help somebody with knee extension. So you're sitting in a chair, you try to kick your leg out. So a lot of therapists, they try to just grab the back of the calf and bring that leg up. What neuroinfra is let's activate the muscle that needs to be used for that action. So instead of grabbing the back of the calf, because the calf doesn't do anything with knee extension, put your hand on the quad, activate the quad, something like, put some input.
So cue it, so to speak.
Into that quad so that can activate. So that type of technique is something that I use a lot, helping somebody relearn how to walk, because something that we've done since we were 12 months, 13 months old. Once we have an injury, it's like we forget how to completely walk. The body's so quick to adapt, but it takes forever to learn how to do it again correctly. It's like you've been walking forever, But since you had the injury, the body's still in protect mode, muscles aren't firing, there still might be some swelling. There's all types of things that come into play. So I utilize that not just for patients who have some type of neurological thing going on, but also for people with musculoskeletal injuries, because in my mind, how I treat MSK is as much neuro as MSK.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't treat MSK
they're
without
they're integrated. The muscles and nerves they're just like this.
Absolutely.
They work as a unit.
Yep. You can't isolate it to just the muscle. Sometimes you got to look up and down that whole system.
And do you predominantly treat certain age groups of people, certain types of injuries? I know some organizations will specialize in athletes that are high school or college, whether it's prepping them for function. Some are repairing them from injuries. Others are, hey, we do geriatrics. We just work on the elderly population. Some are pediatrics. Is there a group that you specifically specialize, or are you more like, hey, it's function top to bottom and lifespan?
Absolutely. I think it's function top to bottom. But the great thing about being out here in Colorado, everybody's an athlete at some way, shape, or form, right? Whether they're a cyclist, whether they're an ultra marathoner, which I still think it's crazy, football player, volleyball player, lacrosse, it doesn't matter. They're an athlete at some point in time. So I treat everybody as if they're getting ready for a competition. Like, we got to bounce back. What's your Super Bowl?
Nice. Is that a question you ask them?
What's your Super Bowl? What's your goals? That. Yeah. What's and I learned that from Next Level. It's like Next Level Physical Therapy, because Jim was an athletic trainer for the Broncos, and then he started his deal over there at Next Level, and it's like that. I like that. I like what is your Super Bowl? What's your U.S. Open if you're a golfer? What's your World Cup if you're a soccer player? What are those questions? Like, so we have a goal.
Yes.
So we have a goal, and let's go get it.
And that's what you do, right?
Yep.
Then you measure progress of whatever exercises you're doing towards their goal incrementally. I remember. Do you remember when? Not Noshawn. One of the running backs. Noshawn didn't blow out his knee, did he?
Noshawn hurt his knee.
Okay, so I remember when Noshawn hurt his knee. He was running back here in Denver, and there's a picture of him on the ground. And I happen to have the picture. I got off the internet, and I would use it as a teaching tool to teach the doctors that I was working with. I'm like, look, if this guy's on the ground, how often is he going to be in the training room? How often? And they said, every day or twice a day or whatever it takes. And I'm like, yeah. You know why? Because this group has lots of money invested, not only in him, but in this team doing well. And if he's a critical part of the team, he's doing well. But I said, let me ask you a question. How is it that Noshawn and his importance to the team is any better than Susie or Tom
Absolutely.
Or Jake and their importance to their team, their work team, their family? They got to go to work. So you guys need to create systems and plans and treatment programs that allow this person to get just as good a care as this person.
Absolutely.
You need to treat every person like they're Noshawn Moreno, right?
Absolutely.
And have you found that? Like, if you have that kind of mentality with your patients and put that standard on yourself, you're going to give the best care possible, right?
Yeah, I think, and that's the beauty of being cash based. Like, I'm upfront and honest and tell them, like, yo, we're a team, but you're going to have to take some responsibility for this too. Like, even when you're not seeing me, you're still having to do that treatment. You're still having to be on that rehab, because I don't want to just burn through your dollars, right? Because I could just keep charging, but I don't want to operate like that. I want to operate like, let's stretch it. Let's use it to the best, use the visits time here, best of our ability. I'm going to push you here. And if we're okay here, these things that we do here in clinic, you can do at home. As long as there was no pain, let's do them. Let's make sure. And so when you come back around, okay, you can walk normal. That gives us the green light to take off the brace and let's start stepping into some volleyball hits. Let's start doing a little bit more active stuff, a little bit more dynamic versus, just sitting on the table doing quad sets. Because if I'm only seeing you once a week, twice a week, it's going to take a longer time to get to where we need to even start walking. But if you're being diligent and taking care of your business at home or in your gym or at the practice facility, then it allows us the flexibility to push a little harder.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier that I want to bring to light. Everybody, athletes and quote unquote non-athletes, people that are coming in for treatment with you and are going about their lives. I think so much gets lost among so many providers, which is why I was so glad to hear you say it. in that it's not just about, hey, let's have you do this many sets of squats, this many sets of dips, this many sets of whatever, and then we're going to put you through this functional patterning, and then we're going to make sure that you're good, and then you're good. No, there's a nutritional component, and there's an emotional component, because all of this affects you, like you said, biopsychosocial effect on this, and the fact that you recognize it and you implement that, I think makes you actually probably pretty rare among providers of all types, and I can see why after visiting with you here. But describe the role that you feel that nutritional and that mental and emotional support mean to the healing and the function process.
So let's talk about concussions then with healing after a concussion. Let's say my first couple years in the league, concussions, you sat in a dark room for however long till your symptoms resided, then you returned back. So my second year, I had a concussion. I missed 2 weeks of training camp and then came back. Concussion rehab and protocols definitely changed after the first 2-3 days. Now let's start being active. But in that first 2 or 3 days, our brain is constantly trying to heal itself. So we have to feed it with some nutrients. Like we're in this metabolic demand with our brain to try, like, let's get some carbs in there. Let's get some glucose. Let's get energy to it, because we got to feed the strongest muscle in our body, right? We got to feed it. If we can think about that with the brain now with these studies, and then after lifting, we always take protein after we lift because we damaged muscles, we shredded some, try to eliminate DOMs and soreness. Why aren't we doing that after surgery? Why won't you do that after rehab?
So true.
Like if I have you on a blood flow restriction machine, so what it is it's a blood pressure cuff that calibrates to your blood pressure and includes limb blood perfusion to that limb by 80% in the legs or 50% in the body. So it puts the muscle in this hypoxic state where we do a bicep curl, we're starving the muscle, re-release, but it keeps you in that starving state to tell the body, to trick the body to let's send some growth hormones there. Let's send some blood there. Let's try to save this limb. Like our body's going to try to save it. So we're sending all the good stuff towards it. While we're using that BFR, we're still doing exercises. We're still pushing. We're still possibly stressing the tissue, things of that nature. I still educate, like, you have to eat something after this.
Yeah.
Even though it was 8 minutes, 16 minutes of doing something with that, you still have to eat, because we're still trying to heal. We're still trying to make sure the body has enough nutrients and energy, because the muscle needs nutrients, and needs carbs, and needs all that protein, everything to re-heal and rebuild itself. That's our structure of our body. So why are we taking it just with concussions? Or better yet, why are we taking it just after lifting? It should be after rehab, should be after surgery, should be after an injury.
And how about in between? Like, a big thing is inflammation, right? And so many of us have a pro-inflammatory diet, meaning we're taking in things into our bodies that create inflammation in the form of, sugars, alcohols, any number of high glycemic carbs. Absolutely. All these things create inflammation that if you're trying to heal, you want to reduce inflammation. Absolutely. So we want to support with the fuel that these tissues need to heal, and then keep out the non-fuel empty calories that just drive and prevent healing. Is that something that you push with folks too?
Yeah. Depends on where they are. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about alcohol consumption with a kid unless the parent has that talk with me. But inflammation to a certain extent is a good thing. Like sure. When we do needling, like we're trying to speed up the inflammation process. But there's a certain point where, like, it's outside of my scope, but let's talk about what you're taking. Like, why are we not getting that inflammation out of there? What are we eating? Do we need to potentially refer you to a dietitian, sports nutritionist, things of that nature? Do I need to get on the phone with one and just have a conversation, just so I can learn too what I need to for you in this regard? Because it's not my scope. I didn't learn nutrition. I know my basic nutrition from my experience. I've seen some studies. I've seen creatine, how great that is, post-concussion, things of that nature. But I'm not studied up on nutrition.
Right, which is beautiful to know. Again, that's where I think medicine in general has gotten so much better than when I graduated from Cairo School in '91, where MDs hated DCs, DCs hated MDs, PTs were afterthoughts in these two worlds unless it was for this specific thing, and acupuncture was just plain nuttiness, and massage was foo-foo. Now people are coming together to say, hey, just like on a high-end sports team, right? You guys have your orthopedic doctor, you have your chiro, you have your massage therapists,
Yes.
you have they're all individual. Now we can create that kind of thing for mom, dad.
Absolutely.
Everybody can have that kind of care if they just have their network. I think that is so cool.
Absolutely.
Oh man! See, this conversation
Yeah,
can go,
right.
go. I do want to kind of follow up with respect to what you're doing now in the community. You have an initiative where you're helping kids with literacy. Talk a little bit about your foundation, because you're doing so much more than just helping people physically recover. You're helping kids get a jump start on their future.
Absolutely. So I started Bruton's Books in 2015, a childhood literacy program focused on K through third graders in the DPS and previously the APS school system as well. I originally thought about it to do something different than a football camp. A lot of athletes have their football camp, and I was always the guy who read a book in the cold tub, read a book while getting treatment. Brian Dawkins would call me a nerd. All this, what book you reading today, nerd? Right? So that was my thing. I was always passionate about.
Since you were a
reading.
kid, you loved reading.
I loved reading when I was a kid, and then that was my way away from football.
Yeah.
Even while we're in training camp in the facility. Right?
And did you focus on any genre of reading, or just?
I liked fiction, just
Fiction,
fiction,
yeah,
suspense type.
yeah.
That was more my deal, just to get away from some reality. 'Cause
Absolutely.
my reality was 2-a-days, football pads,
Hammering it.
Yeah, hammering it day in and day out, right? So, just wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle in that regard. So I started that foundation. We've been running since 2015. We've been able to, provide tutors through the Reading Corps when they were operational, partnered with Mile High United Way, diving into specific schools that have this vast need of education. So DPS, since COVID, has lost over $1 million in books for the library.
Are you kidding?
So they're struggling there. The tutoring program that we initially established, obviously Reading Corps doesn't exist anymore, so we're trying to establish another one in an elementary school and make it sustainable. So we've done great job. My board members, people who help volunteer with the community as far as tutoring, going to the schools, providing books to the school, having kids have a chance to win bikes if they meet their reading goal. Because I'm a big cyclist, and I love the fact that education and cardiovascular kind of go hand in hand. Like, you can retain information, but it was crazy. I initially just started the Bruton's Books just because I like to read. Wow. And then partnering with United Way, you understand, like, prison sizes are made based on reading level by third grade. You learn to read K through third grade, but at third grade, you are reading to learn. So if you can't read proficiently at third grade, what type of success are you set up for if you're always struggling?
Yes.
And I think that's a huge skill set that there's no job that doesn't require you to read.
And so how do you guys do? What does it look like? So someone gets, you have these programs where they can get bikes, where these young folks can get bikes and this kind of thing. Is it something where you distribute books?
Yes, sir. So
is that what you do?
So we've distributed books. We've partnered with Center for Talent Development Elementary School to kind of what's your needs and how can we address that. We host a golf outing for that specific reason, the funding to make something sustainable in the schools respectively. We've been very blessed to partner up with Trek. Trek Bikes have distributed to us bikes over the last couple of years to provide for these kids who reach their reading goals. So we kind of come up with a plan with teachers and staff. What's the need? We do a needs analysis and we address accordingly.
Wow. I bet you have a waiting list of people that would like you to come in and support their classrooms or their schools.
We've had a few schools reach out, and we're a small organization. I want to keep my hands on it. I don't want it to be too big of a problem where I can't be as involved as I want to be. I don't want it to be one that we're just throwing money at a problem. I want to be involved. I want to go in there and check out what's our progress. I want to be be a tutor as well. I did that when I was taking my undergrad classes and at PT school. They're at the elementary school. So we're just trying to be involved, as much involved as we can in the school system to help these kids have success in their future life. So we've been, like I said, we have a golf outing. It's September 19th of this year at Green Valley Ranch golf course, and the funds go towards providing some tutors and a tutoring program and digital tutoring for a school in DPS.
Man, thank you for doing that.
No
That is
problem.
so cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so I got two questions. One
Yes,
is
sir.
kind of a fun question. The other one is a fun question.
All right.
And so here's the first one. You're going to school. You're rewinding the clock, right? And it's time to go to college. You got to pick a college. Notre Dame or CU. Knowing, wait. Knowing that CU has Prime as their coach.
Notre Dame.
Okay.
Notre Dame.
Okay.
Notre
See, I
Dame.
just had to test it
Notre Dame.
because Deion Sanders making quite the
Oh,
stir
yeah,
up there in
absolutely.
Boulder of getting blue chippers. So
Absolutely. I would like to see him win 5-6 games, but
yeah,
from
one.
Yeah, from one.
The
True,
over-under is pretty
true.
low from
Yeah,
last year.
That is true. That's true. There is a lot of hype behind that, and
Yep.
hopefully it comes to fruition and there's success there, and then that program gets back to what it was in the 90s when they cheated. And then,
Whoa. Okay, time to end that conversation. Hey, the next question is, have you found one piece of advice that was given to you or that you've learned along the way that has become fundamentally integrated as to who you are and really all about your life that you would be willing to share with us that we could learn from too?
What did I learn? Man, I learned so much. It's going to be hard to.
Yeah, you're a doctor, for God's sake.
Right?
You've learned a ton.
I learned a lot. I think self-criticism. Like we circle back from earlier today.
Yeah.
Like instead of just patting yourself on the back, like really look at how you could be better, how you could do better, at work, at school, in your respective sport, at life. How could you do better? Are you willing to learn from those mistakes? Are you willing to make those changes necessary? And I think that was a huge part, especially in PT school. We did this thing called CAPE, and you had to watch yourself. And I remember some of my classmates, like, they hated watching themselves. Like, it was nerve-wracking, this, that, and the other. I'm like, this is second nature to me because we watched ourselves practice games. Like, how could I be better? How could I be a better practitioner? How can I be more relatable to the patients? Do I need to be a chameleon and adapt according to what the healthcare professional standard is as far as vernacular and conversation? And ultimately, looking back at it, it's like I'm more exhausted if I do that. So I'm going to speak myself, be myself. I'm knowledgeable. I might not talk the same. I might cuss a little bit more in our treatments, but if you can relate to me there, if you want that locker room feel, if you want that, that's how I'm going to treat. And if you respond well to it, great. And if it doesn't work, there's no harm, no foul there, but I can't change who I am.
Yes.
Because I'm going to be fundamentally burnt out because I'm having to constantly put on a new mask every single patient that walks in.
Dude, that is so brilliant. So good. Yeah. Last question.
Yes, sir.
If people want to get a hold of you, either to learn more about coming in to see you as a patient, or they want to learn more about the foundation, how they could support it, what's the best way for them to reach out and connect?
So they can jump on the websites. There's brutonsbooks.org. So that's BRUTONS books, BOOKS.org. And then there's also Between the Lines with an S. A lot of people miss that. Between the Lines PT as in physical therapy.com and you can see what we treat, how we treat myself, my other physical therapists, as well as, with Bruton's Books, you can see things that we've done. You can see the golf outing that we are having put together. You can register, come support, come swing for literacy for sure.
Oh, I love that. Man, this has been such a treat for me, such a joy. And
yes,
thank you so much for what you do in the community for our people to keep them healthy. Thank you for what you've done for our city and help bringing a championship here. And listen, we're still all living somewhat off the high of that because it certainly hasn't been great since then. But this has been such a treat for me. So I wish you the best. And you always have a friend in us here at Ramos Law.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And for those of you watching, please, if this made a difference in your life, please share it in some way. Send it to someone, the video, the audio, whatever it is. And if you have any guests or topics you'd like us to explore, send them my way. It's jim@ramoslaw.com, and I'll be happy to get a guest on to talk about that with you and for you. So in the meantime, until we talk next week, remember to go out there, get it done, and make a difference.